With Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord Warsails DLC having just launched, there are a lot of systems to break into. In this video today, I want to jump into talking about the new boats, how mariners work, and how your attributes affect the 3 new skills added to the game. But if this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge in my videos. So let me start off by saying that mariners are the new troop type added to the game. They are denoted by the little wave under the troop type symbol in the encyclopedia. 2 big things mariners have going for them is that they have lighter armor, so they can swim for longer without drowning, and this is the most important, their skills do not diminish when doing sea battles. Any troop without that symbol will have reduced skills on the ocean. As far as boats go, there are 3 classifications: light, medium, and heavy. Each one has increased weight, which is more ramming damage and better durability on the ocean, increased seaworthiness for the ability to go into the deeper ocean on the map, more upgrades, and a number of other things. But mainly they will provide you with bigger benefits, with trade-offs like not being able to go as fast by the shore or be as maneuverable in sea battles. Lastly, the 3 new skills are Mariner, Boatswain, and Shipmaster. Each one is governed by 2 attributes. Mariner is attached to cunning and endurance, Boatswain is linked to control and social, and Shipmaster works with vigor and intelligence. Mariner dictates your troops' performance in sea battles, Boatswain is the logistics of your ship as well as the wages of your troops, and Shipmaster dictates campaign movement for your boat as well as other site-related benefits. But that's too long to watch this entire video. I'll be discussing how to do upgrades to ships, control them, and everything. But if that's all you want to know, please feel free to shut the video down. I want to be respectful of your time. You can jump ahead to any part of the video that interests you the most using the chapters of the timeline in the description. And if you are heading out, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe, as each one of those helps me out in a huge way. Well, let's get started on the ultimate guide to ships and mariners in Warsails. Loading into the game, let's talk about boats. And as you can see here, the map looks pretty much the same, but it's also a little different. You'll notice you'll see these major ports that are located here, here, here. And no longer can you just simply sail over like little portions of land. You're going to have to use a boat. And I say sail over land or sail over water like you could do that before. But you also have the map extended in the north here. So you have the new Nord locations are up in this area as well. And easiest way to really get into this, like I've said before, is play the campaign. The campaign puts you into boats immediately. If you do sandbox or otherwise, you're going to have to buy a boat, and it ain't cheap. So I'm using the cheat console to load myself up with money so I can show this off without showing you any kind of like spoilers of saying like, hey, here's what the game looks like towards the end game. It's only got 2 parts. I got 7 mil. This is clearly not real. But we're going to go over here to any of these cities that have this little anchor here, right? We're going to then go over to the port, manage a fleet. And from this menu, we have the ability to buy all of our boats. And boats have a number of upgrades on them, different classes, all sorts of things. So we'll talk very loosely about that right now. And I think it's important to know that this is not cheap to jump into. Like I said, this is 18,000. So if you're starting a brand new playthrough, and which I would recommend with any DLC, you're looking at a very heavy investment out the gate to get into a ship versus the campaign, which gets you into ships immediately. So if we jump through all these, we can see that these are all Western galleys. There are different classifications of ship based off of the region in which you buy them. So the Nords have different locations, have different ships, everything. And these different classifications can be locked into a bunch of stuff over here on the right. So you can see over on the right here, we have hull, Western Galley. That's just the name of the ship, more or less. Then the class. There are 3 classes: light, medium, and heavy. Then we have got our crew. Now the crew can be broken up into 3 separate portions. Skeletal capacity is the minimum number of troops a ship can carry. So basically think of it this way. If you drop below this number, you start to have travel penalties. It's much slower to move around. And then you have the majority, or the max amount is whatever that number is. So it's like 8, 32, 32. So 32 is the most we can have on the deck, the number of troops the ship can carry into battle, than the max capacity that the ship can actually have. When you jump into larger classes of ships, you're going to see that the number at the very end will be a larger number than the number in the middle, because deck capacity is basically, think of it this way. You know how when you go ahead and configure the game's options for how many soldiers are allowed on the battlefield, that doesn't reflect the total massive amount of the army, right? If you have a limit of 1,000, that's 500 versus 500. Even if it's 2 armies that are like 10,000 large, it's the same thing here. we're pulling from the hull, or from the capacity for the deck for combat. So that's how that works. So let's just say hypothetically that's at 832.64 would mean that we have 8 as our minimum amount before we incur penalties. 32 is the most amount of soldiers that can be on the ship during a fight, and 64 is the total amount of crew that we can have on the ship. Then we have capacity, which is our cargo. So this is just basically like your inventory capacity, right? So like if you had horses and whatnot, this would inflate your capacity if you're walking on land. This is just a number for when you're on a boat. Then we also have weight. Now weight is a number of things here. It's not just simply how fast you move, how long it takes you to accelerate, stuff like that. It's also, though, how much damage you can do when it comes to ramming other ships, and it's how much or how well your ship can handle going out into the deep sea. Let me go ahead and cancel this real quick and go back. Town center, leave. So this is considered, you can kind of see it, right? This is considered not the deep sea. As you kind of go into this darker color of ocean, this is the deep sea, meaning that you need to have a heavier classification of ship to deal with it. And as you can see, the majority of the water that you're going to be playing through is not deep. So you'll be fine with light and medium classifications of ships. But if you wanted to go from, say, like Corsair across to Poros, you would start to deal with attrition through this location in the middle here. So these heavier ships allow you to, yeah, maybe you're not going as fast, but you can take a direct point from A to B, versus the lighter ships have to travel the coastline to get over here. And furthermore, too, it's like when you kind of take a look at the Nord locations, it's harder to get to them because they've got to go all the way around. Like if you were, let's just say you're Volandia, because that's the way it's pronounced, all the way around to get to this, you'd have to just follow the coastline, right? You'd have to hop over here and take a little bit of attrition damage to get over to this. So these heavier classifications of ships allow for this to be taken without any kind of attrition, any kind of issue. It just means you also are going to go much much slower and what have you. But like I said too, you also, with a heavier ship, you hit things much harder. Like you can just sink the lower classifications of ship if you have a heavy ass ship. You also then are going to have your travel speed. You have your sails. Now there are two types of sails. This says square, but if I were to start down in Aserai, they typically start with Latin sails. So the difference here is that square sails have a higher acceleration with a moderate top speed, and they don't have it as much wind coverage. Versus Latines, they don't accelerate as fast. They have a much higher top speed, and they have a wider wind coverage. Wider wind coverage allows me to catch the wind far easier than, say, the square sails. Now, your ships eventually will grow to maybe have both ship sails. The heavier classifications will typically have multiple masts, which will then have more sails on you, so you allow you to do that. Now, the weight capacity thing we talked about, this isn't what helps determine whether or not you can go into deep or shallow water. It's draft right here. Draft type of the ship. Ships with shallow drafts travel faster through rivers and coastal seas and slower through open waters. Ships with deep drafts travel slower through rivers and coastal areas and faster through open waters. So weight helps you on the bigger open areas, but draft is what pretty much allows you to either catch speed in those locations or go slow in those locations. Just depends on everything. So if I somehow doubled my weight in this swordfish, I would go I would not have as much attrition in deep water, but I would not be going as fast in that deep water because my draft is shallow. Vice versa, if I had my weight low, I would take no damage in shallow water, and I'd be going super fast in shallow water because my draft is shallow. Larger classifications of ships, the medium and the light, the medium and the heavy will have a different draft configuration of deep, which allows you to go into deep water at a faster rate. Then you have seaworthiness here. This kind of also factors into what we talked about too when it comes to taking attrition on different locations of the map. So this basically your higher seaworthiness means you take less attrition on the open sea, and you can deal with storms. And storms will take even more attrition against you. You then have hit points as well. So you also will have your upgrade slots. So we've gone over the details of your boats. So let's talk about upgrading boats. So we've gone ahead and purchased 2 of the boats from the dock. I have Swordfish and Gray Eagle. If we take a look at Swordfish, we can see all these little blips right here. These are the 4 upgrade slots that Swordfish has. 0 of them are filled. If I click on Gray Eagle, I can see that one of these little blips is filled, and that corresponds to this over here on the left, lead sheathing. So this gives my increase seaworthiness, but also increases the weight of the ship by 10%. This helps out with both of what you would imagine, which is dealing with scarier weather, dealing with deeper oceans, but also ramming ships better. But we also can see, if we click on Swordfish yet again, that I can click this and I can upgrade to lead sheathing if I want, or I can go bronze, or I can go reinforced bronze. So let's go ahead and click this. So now we have lead sheathing, and we don't have these in these settlements, unfortunately. You can see that that is locked to a settlement in order to grab it. But we can also upgrade other portions. Let's look at the ores. So ores are going to give us travel speed and ore speed, also not available in the settlement. Ashlight ores against all the way up. Then we also have sails. These are going to give us a linen sail, which helps out with travel speed and sail rotation speed. And then cotton sails, which does the same, it just amplifies that. And then we click side lastly to get stuff like shields. And shields are going to help us out with basically mitigating damage. So it adds, not passive, but adds mitigated, what's it called? Crew hit points into this. And these are also not available on this settlement. But this is how you upgrade. It's very, very, very straightforward. I just wanted to have a little section here in case you, for some reason, didn't know how to do it. You click it and it's right there, and you pop into it and you pay the price and you're good. And it's not that expensive to upgrade. As you can see, lead sheathing was only $550 to do that. And then you can also conversely sell these back if you want. You can send them to other portions of your, like if you have a larger clan, there's no suitable parties in your clan to send the ship to. But you can actually send it to another party and have that party have that ship rather than you just being the master of all of them. So that is your crash course on how ships work, how you get them, how you upgrade them. Let's talk quickly though about manning these ships with mariners. So this is the new troop tree for the Nords. And you'll see that the Nords have the typical progression that we get from any troop tree, where you've got your one single tier 1 unit that will then bifurcate into another warrior, which will then kind of go into another warrior, but maybe also a different type of that warrior, and so on and so forth. And we also have an archer line. But what I want you to take a look at on this screen is the little waves underneath this. It just says infantry, but what it actually means is that this is a mariner. This also is a mariner. So anything with that little wave symbol underneath is a mariner. What that means is that anytime you take a look at a mariner unit, it is going to perform better on the open ocean. And that is what's important here, right? Because we're not necessarily talking about mariners being like a set unit. Like, okay, I want to recruit a mariner unit. No, it's a classification, or I guess a modifier that exists on either all the Nords or our existing rosters. And basically it allows them to use their full sets of skills on water. Now, mariner skills are unchanged on both land and water. That is important. And there's also a armor classification to this. So anything that has heavy armor can't swim. It has lower endurance when it comes to being on the ocean. So you have to factor those things in. Most of all of the entirety of the, what are these called? The Nords have like light armor classification. Like this is chainmail. This is like their heaviest dude. But if I click back to troops and let's just click, rather than Nords, let's click, you know what? Here's an example. The opposite of Nords, Khazate. And if I click, do I have infantry selected? Cool. If you look at this roster for Khazate, they have 0 mariners. None of their units can act as mariners, meaning that I can still bring these units onto ships, no problem, but they will have diminished skills on the open ocean. And that is the important classification between these two. So also, you know, the mariner troops can swim longer before they drown. Otherwise, you have to bring them onto your ship. But if I click Empire, let's just click Peasant, we can see that most rosters will satisfy the same route that the Empire does, where you've got your tier 1 unit. The tier 1 unit will progress into, you know, well, the real tier 1 unit, right? The Peasant's on a tier 1 unit. You got your recruits, and then it goes down this line here, and you can see that there is a small breakout for some type of Mariner unit. I can go trained infantryman into the Coast Guard, into the nautical, whatever. Or I can go veteran infantryman into it as well. These are the same unit. It's just different ways to get there. And if I look over, same thing over here, right? I can go shipmate from tier 3 into Coast Guard into this. And if I look over at the archers don't have any mariners. The kind of trade-off here is that all these guys have some sort of throwing weapon. I'm going to go ahead and just jump back and show you the rest of the troops so you can see this in case you haven't bought the game yet and maybe on the fence about it. Vlandia has its seafarers and Nata, which are going to use crossbows, and you can see that their infantry doesn't have any actual infantry that is a mariner, meaning that if I were to bring these sergeants onto the open ocean, they would have diminished stats. I don't know what the diminished stats are, though. Like if I hover over Vlandian Sergeant, I can see that it's got 130 athletics, one-handed, and polearm. I don't know if that gets a 30% penalty or a 10% penalty. Unfortunately, and I've asked the devs and I haven't gotten a clear-cut answer, unfortunately. So I wish I had a good answer there for you. But that is Vlandia, that is Khazate, that's the Empire. Let's look at Sturgia and Aserai real quick. Aserai has actually very good archers, as you would imagine, on the open ocean, because you don't get the Master Archer, which is one of the best archers in the game, but you get the, I know it's not Biryani, but the first time I saw this word, it reminded me of it. And they're almost the exact same here. So you get a very good archer on the ocean. And as far as any kind of infantry goes, they have veteran sailors that you would just not upgrade to the archers. So you do have access to some kind of mariner archer, infantry with Aserai. And I think they have, personally, I think they have one of the better naval everything. They have pretty good ships and they've got really good mariners, Jesus. Click that off and go to Sturgia. And we'll look at this. So Sturgia has the kind of opposite, right? They don't really have good archers, but they've just got beasts when it comes to infantry. So they've got a bunch of throwing weapons, and these guys are going to be able to do some serious damage if they get up close and personal. But that's kind of going to be their claim to fame, is that Sturgia fits the profile of what Sturgia has always had, which is nice infantry, right? And you can kind of split that hair as however you want. But this gives you a sense of what the progression is like, or what the sensation is like of other mariners across all the other factions. Mariners are key to your success. If you're trying to go into like a heavy naval build, it's jumping into them as quick as you can so you don't have any diminished stats, anything like that. But we've talked about mariners, we talked about boats. How do these skills come together for the character? So with this, we get 3 new skills. With this DLC of Warsails, we get 3 skills in Mariner, Boatswain, and Shipmaster. And there's 3 breakouts for both of these. Shipmaster is going to help out with sailing speed. But basically, I want you to think of Shipmaster as campaign-related bonuses, stuff that happens on the campaign map, mostly. There are, of course, other things here, but that's mainly it. Boatswain is related to benefits and bonuses that are linked to your actual ships or the soldiers that inhabit your ships. Reduces ships receive damage by 2.5%. And then Mariner is basically enhancing your troops or your ability within ships. There are, of course, other campaign stuff that will bleed in here. Those cardinal rules, or the one sentence synopsis of each one of these skills, they will break. Like, for example, here, I thought there was here, conformity gain for pirate prisoners in your party while at sea. That is a campaign benefit. That's not necessarily focused at your individual troops. Or Boatswain has, where is it? Plus 30% damage dealt to shields with ranged weapons while wielded by crew. So that's something that benefits your troops in something that I said is going to benefit the ship. And Shipmaster will have the same thing here, like minus 50% range damage suffered by character while steering the ship. So that's something that's when you're actually in the game. So there are still things that are going to happen with each one of these that will be present for other stuff, like I said, but just know that. Now, Shipmaster, you basically get more experience by just simply going around the campaign map. Boatswain, you just simply need to weather storms and survive battles. And Mariners, you need to just fight. That's it. That's all. Simulated battles give you a ton of Mariner experience as well. And it is worth noting, too, that Mariner experience helps out with simulations. Auto battle combat penalty negation effect. and simulation advantage. So that's the big benefit of those. But you can see here that this doesn't have a corresponding attribute. Remember, your learning rate is dictated by your focus point investment plus your attribute, right? So right now, learning rate for vigor, for one-handed, is a vigor related skill. I'm just going to go ahead and pop 1 point of this. Our learning rate is going to go up to 4.5. And if I put a focus point, it goes up to 5.7. So remember, that's how learning rate is dictated, in case you somehow forgot. Oops. But if we look at Mariner, there's no skill, there's no stat. It's because now each one of these skills corresponds to 2 stats each. Vigor is going to give us Shipmaster, as well as, Control is Boatswain, Endurance is Mariner, Cunning is Mariner, Social is Boatswain, and Shipmaster is Intelligence. So Vigor and Intelligence for Shipmaster, Endurance and Cunning for Mariner, and Social and Control for Boatswain. Meaning, again, if I were to put, we're taking a look at Boatswain, right? If I were to put 1 attribute point into this, it brings up our learning rate here. And then I can put a focus point there, and it brings up our learning rate as well. So that's how I would focus on both of these, or any of these skills, which is nice, right? Like I can say to myself, hey, I want to be an archer character that worries about my athletics. Well, Control and Endurance, cool. That's going to give me both in Mariner and Boatswain. Or maybe I just want to be a really good scouting character that is an archer. Well, that's Control and Cunning. That's going to be Mariner and Boatswain. Or maybe I'm just going to go 100% in with Vigor and Intelligence because I'm going to go one-handed and Steward and Medicine and Engineering. That's all Shipmaster. So this shows you how the skills break out differently according to what attribute investment you want to go with. So let's just quickly talk about each one of the skills and just jump through these skill trees very quickly. Starting with Mariner, you can see basically you're going to get weapon handling increases here, accuracy penalty from ship rolls, because you're going to have siege engines attached to the front of the ships, all sorts of things. You're going to get kicking and bashing damage. You get a shield hit point increase. I don't know where it is on here, but there is a throwing weapon one that is disgusting. You get damage dealt with axes, which will then also layer in with your one-handed up there. You get damage dealt with swords, morale for each ship destroyed in battle, or experience gained by party companions after each naval battle. So lots of experience can come from this. Morale boosts. You have armor penetration for melee weapons, as well as armor penetration for melee weapons for your whole crew. But this one is huge. Armor penetration for ranged weapons. You can just absolutely wreck stuff with shattering volley. It is really disgusting. Starting pirate parties can be recruited. You just have all these things that'll help you out. Melee damage dealt by character when fighting on ships. It also helps out the whole crew if you have it for a captain. And this is basically either fighting on another ship or on your own ship. And then you get a crew of spears, impale shields with thrown javelins. Throwing axes deal damage after if they break a shield. So you can go through a shield with crew of spears. Just goes right through and just hits the person on the other side. So you can just straight up kill someone. It's one of the strongest skills that's been added to the game so far. Mighty blows, though, you can cleave with two-handed weapons, range damage dealt by a character, or melee damage dealt by a character. So if you want to be someone who's on the ship doing all the damage and trying to lead all these crews, you definitely want to go with Mariner. Boatswain now is a little bit different. And Boatswain kind of combines some of the stuff from tactics and engineering, if you were to think of this as land battles. And we can get stuff like, cost of ship upgrade reduction or ship cost reduction. You get your ballista reloaded faster or more ammunition. Wages decrease for cav troops while they're at sea. Or here's where is where we start to talk about Mariner versus non-Mariner stuff. Minus 10% wages of non-Mariner troops while at sea. And you've got, I think it's over here. Where is it? Yeah, it's over there. We'll talk about it in a sec then. Chance to capture ships after battle. Daily bonus of 10x character level expedite companions, which can basically, you put companions on your boat and then go out on a boat and you give them tons of levels if you're higher in the game. Damage to hulls of enemy ships or armor for low tier units. You can damage to shields with ranged weapons or ammo for ballistae, but these two right here are pretty cool. So this is upgrade cost reduction for Mariner troops, and this is recruitment costs for Mariner troops reduction. So you can choose, like if I'm playing a Nord, I just want to have tons of troops, or I want to have high quality troops. So you get to make that choice going through one of these. And Boatswain is the only one that has Mariner versus non-Mariner stuff, I believe. There might be one in Shipmaster. But ship command limit, so it can have a larger fleet. Both of these are like that. There's different governor things. Discarded ships provide influence, and discarded ships repair party ships. So you can choose, do I want more influence out of every ship that I've just decided not to take? Or do I want to just basically get more repairs so I can keep doing more plundering? Command limit of ships in battle, and 30% health of hit points lost in battle are recovered after a victory, which is actually one of the stronger ones here. I mean, just allows you to basically get into more fights quicker. This last one is shipboard ballistas fire during sieges, which is really, really nice because you can now blockade any of these port cities to have those ships actually do some crazy damage. So that's Boatswain. Let's talk lastly about Shipmaster. Now, Shipmaster is basically kind of like scouting, a lot of scouting style of perks with some other stuff mixed in. And you can see here we get, chance of campaign per hour of campaign time to catch fish while sailing on a campaign map, helping to give you some food, which is really nice. I would take it over the travel speed because this is just basically, I have a 25% per hour to just get food back into my hold. And you consume quite a bit of food on the open ocean. But fewer troops lost when running a blockade, and 20% chance to avoid leaving ships behind, or minus 50% deck movement penalty, so you can actually move around quite a bit in combat. Minus 50% to night spotting range, or minus 3% to coastal movement speed penalty. So you can see that a lot of this plays into a lot of the kind of stuff that we got from scouting, right? Morale boost when ships ran enemies or sail forces and missions, minus 50% to duration of disorganized state while at sea. I think this is spotting range. Yeah, spotting range on campaign map. And this one's cool for that 50% range damage suffered by character while steering the ship, because you'll get shot a lot while you're steering the ship. So this one's nice to just be able to tank those shots better because you can't avoid them. You're just sitting there steering. You can't bring a shield up. And you get campaign travel speed, campaign map travel speed versus, so this is map travel speed when running before the wind. And this is just overall 5% speed. So basically it's like you take the wind, get 10% more, or you take just a flat 5% bonus. Ship recall time, disembarkation speed, oar force in missions, which is really good. So you can actually use oars to be way more effective at ramming. Fleet size penalty for campaign map movement, so your fleets can move faster that are larger. Experience gain each troop per hour at sea, or 30 experience gained by each troop once per day when entering storms. So I like this one more because it's just a flat bonus all the way around. You have to go hunt storms otherwise. And then minus damage sustained by ships when crew is sent to confront enemies versus damage plus 10% damage when wielding one-handed weapons at sea. And lastly, we then have Commodore flagship figurehead provides bonus to all allied ships. So even though all this stuff I said is way more tactics related, this Commodore capability is something that you're going to use in battle. So it gives you an ally, all your allies get bonuses when you're actually doing fighting. And you can see how all of these skill trees blend together to make for a very fun situation when you're plying your trade in the open ocean. And lastly, let's talk about moving your ship around. This is all pretty self-explanatory, but I just want to, I figure in a guide like this, it's worth going through. You also have your formations here. You can allocate your captains to any of these ships. If you have multiple, you just drag and drop them onto this little window there, right? You also can say, give equal preference to infantry and ranged troops, just melee or just ranged. You can kind of set that up however you see fit. Now, I don't know why that did that. We will do fire at will. Oh, there we go. So let's go ahead and press ready. And I'm going to pause it here so we don't deal with any tomfoolery. You're going to see in the lower right-hand corner, that is the thing that's the most important. That gives us our wind direction. And actually, can I just go in photo mode? No. Yeah, it doesn't do what I wanted it to do. That's our wind direction, right? So we can see the little gust of wind is showing us the direction in which we are going to get wind from. And that is where it's currently facing, or where our ship is facing this way. This is where the wind is coming from. These larger blocks show us that we have larger amounts of wind in that. The smaller is obviously a smaller block, but also the height determines the amount of that wind as well. So you can see the entire stern of the ship right here is, I believe there's a difference between aft and stern, but I'm just going to say stern. the stern of the ship is all the way over to the port, to the starboard. We have no wind, meaning that in that time, there's going to be no wind going to the sails. The ship's going to go much slower. So you can see that there is not as much height on this little block versus this little block. Those are both very small. The one above them are larger, then cascading to larger, versus head on into the wind is not the fastest, but you're still catching wind. You know what I mean? So this shows you how you can take the advantage of the wind either coming into you or out from you, depending on the direction. And this might seem a little counterintuitive right now, right? So it's like if I press Z, I'm dropping my sails all the way down, and the wind, as I press the button, the wind is not coming from the direction that that little symbol is denoting. It's blowing through my ship into that. So if I were to angle my ship directly into the wind, you can see that it is still not quite as good as it being on the sides of it. So just know that that's kind of how wind works here. We can cut our sails to 50% on some ships, but not this one right here. And we also have the ability, as you see, if I cut the sails, it grays it out. We'll lower the sails again. We can also press X to do half oars, no oars, or full oars. Now, full oars is going to give us the ability to just really get a good top speed, and that's the nice thing here. And then we can press C to change our camera angle to get up close and personal. This one I like for aiming a ram. You just want to be able to use this to kind of really pinpoint and go balls deep. What you really want to know though too is like you can do stuff like cutting the wind. For those of you that are familiar with like maritime history, that's what Admiral Nelson did. You can cut your sails and use half oars to try and get a faster turn, whatever you want to do here. If you've played Sea of Thieves, you're going to be able to really know how to do this. Just know that if you want to really get a good turn in, you have to press reverse. And then you really can't like hang out for too long. Drop those sails back down, go to full oars, and escape that what would have been a pretty deadly ram. Now, we also are trying to run ahead of him, trying to board us. And if I wanted to, like, let's say we want to think of it this way. If I want to go port, that's left, 4 letters, port and 4, and left are 4 letters. That's how I always remember it. Starboard is to our right. So if I want to go to my port and I want to just basically pull a maverick on him, right? I'm going to cut my sails, cut my oars to 1, press back and left. And I'm going to really turn around faster here. Drop my sails as soon as I kind of get a little bit further away and bring my oars right back up. And that's going to allow me to pull left. And I mean, you could just simply press right if you want, but it's a little bit slower, as you can see. We cut the sail to give us a little bit more gusto. But they've already started boarding, which is fine, because that's the next part of this tutorial. Now, I can press X in these moments if I'm far enough away to try and cut the boarding lines. The little, see how right there you've got, right here, you've got this axe with the cut. You have to press it, though. Press it, press it, press it, press it, and they'll cut those boarding lines, because the boarding lines are the difference. Let me try to get, okay, it's just going to go as slow as possible. So they will use the boarding lines to pull your ship in to then throw these nets across. Once these nets have been established, your ship is considered boarding or in the process of it, so you can't escape from this. You have to deal with boarders. And the only, oh my God, did I not switch my soldiers? I have nothing but crap. The only way to deal with this now is to fight. Now you start on your ship. You can see I can't move anything. We're going to have to press F to get away from that. Unfortunately, I don't know what this is on controllers. I'm so sorry. It's whatever you'd use to get on a horse. And we just kind of have to deal with these boarders however we see fit. Try not to get killed. If you get killed, it's just going to make this a very hard process for you. We can just go ahead and tell them to defend the ship by pressing F1. And, oh! Someone threw a javelin in the back of that man's head. Call the police. Oh man, I'm clearly just not the best javelineer right now. And again, you just want to do whatever you can to repel this. I'm gonna hack my way into it. Man, I forgot how challenging this game is. I've played so much of this game in my life, but I haven't played the game in so long that when I went to jump back in, I'm like, yeah, I'll play on realistic. And I just got my ass handed to me. I'm like, oh my God. You can try to kick someone overboard too, because if they have heavy armor, they will drown. Well, they'll drown, period, but heavier. I will also drown too. Wow, look at this instructional video. Have you ever seen a man do such a cool thing? This is how you play Mount & Blade Bannerlord Warsails. But basically, you just want to try to get up behind them. You don't even need to do all the winning here. You're just trying to pull people away to get them surrounded. And maybe I just lose right here, which is fine. You know, like, remember I was like, don't die, it's bad for you. You get round robin beat. What a cool instructional video I've made for you guys. Here, how to play Bannerlord the best. No one's ever played it as good as I have. But either way, you go through that, you win the fight, hopefully, or in my case, you talk through the whole thing and you lose. Which I just did. But that is how you would deal with those situations. If you win that fight, you press X to cut the boarding and you just go on to the next one. But that is how you control your ship. It's also how you very soundly lose a battle. You talk yourself through the whole thing and then fall overboard and just get overrun. But basically, the whole premise of it is you want to just pull people away from these boarding nets so that more of your troops can come on. And you really don't want to have these mismatched angles like this, because the majority of your troops, if they're not archers, can't shoot or do anything. They just get stuck up on these little boarding nets, and they do a bad job of like getting over here and shooting into them. So this is going to come down to you and your troops, what they're like on your ships and everything. I'm just using the simulation system, right? And you can play around with this. You can press this button. None of these were mariners, so we could have done stuff with mariners and tried this out a little bit more. I encourage you to use the naval custom battles to get a sense for how the system works, because mastering it is key to winning it. It is not the easiest thing to master. So at that, it brings our video here to a close. We covered pretty much all of the big principles behind this game. We talked about how the boats work, how Nords, the new Nord system is, Nord system? How the Nord troops work and mariners work and all of that, and how you upgrade your ships and how all the skills and stats work and how you control your ships. There's a lot more nuance to this. I wanted just to kind of give you a crash course without spoiling it, and also give you room to expand and play the game how you want. I didn't give you any concrete tips. I didn't tell you, hey, you have to play this way. This is the only way you can play ship combat. I'm sure someone is going to release number crunched content of this is the way you've got to do it. And if that's what you want, by all means, go for it. But the biggest thing and the best thing about playing Bannerlord is it's a sandbox game. If you want to just play with a ton of archers on your boat, then do it. Have fun with it. Be an Aserai pirate that just plies his trade through the coastline. Do whatever makes the most sense for you, because this is the most fun when it comes to playing Warsails, is deciding what way you want Warsails to play into your campaign. Do you really just like the land battles of Mount & Blade Bannerlord and you don't find the naval portion of this very appealing? Awesome. Just have the AI take part of it. You can just create one person who's a captain, make him be in charge of a bunch of ships, and never ever interact with it, or just use it to go from one location to the next, or have those ships simply blockade for you. Or is this the content you've been waiting for? Then use Warsails to go and be a pirate, go and attack enemy ships, go and blockade yourself, do all that stuff that you've wanted to do since the game came out, because naval combat is something that we've talked about for a long time in Bannerlord. I've put it in speculation videos and all sorts of stuff. So to have it now is awesome. It adds such an engaging layer to the game, but it's a challenge to get into, and I cannot wait for you to sink your teeth into Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord Warsails. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.